If you were to ask a child growing up in the late 80s and early 90s who their favorite company was, you'd hear probably one of two answers, either Disney or the company we're going to be talking about today, Nintendo. Nintendo is a company that actually started way back in the 1800s making playing cards, Japanese playing cards. They persisted for many, many years and didn't really gain any popularity till about the late 80s when they started making arcade games, the most notable being Donkey Kong. Nintendo has been an interesting company ever since then because they always because Nintendo always does their own thing. Nintendo isn't like the other competitors of the video game industry, and that's a huge part of the video game industry is competition. Nintendo never tries to one up its competitors in this modern era. Its competitors being Sony and Microsoft. Nintendo would much rather just do their own thing and go for a different market that Microsoft and Sony aren't trying to get. Microsoft and Sony try to focus more on the hardcore, like more serious audience of video game players, while Nintendo has always been more about catering to families and people who might not normally play games as much. Nintendo likes to try and encompass everyone in a way that gets them more money and makes them more recognizable. And it works because the most recognizable character in all of video games is a Nintendo character, Super Mario. So, the reason I admire Nintendo so much, aside from just having a lifelong love from them from when I was a child, was that I think their strategy and the way they go about doing things is so interesting compared to other video game companies. They are the only one of the major three currently standing that are solely about making video games. Microsoft makes computers, it makes phones, it makes a bunch of other technology. It's not just video games. And Sony is all about movies and DVD players and everything like that. They make movies, they're not solely video games. Nintendo has the money, the time, and the resources to make only video games. And the way they use that is to make a bunch of different games, and they do a bunch of different things. You may have heard of the phenomenon from a few years back called Pokemon Go. That was Nintendo. They decided they wanted to get people out of their homes, which is a big thing that they do with almost every console that they've made. It's like the Wii, they had Wii Fit, and the Wii U, they also had Wii Fit, and in the Switch, they actually just announced it a couple days ago called Ring Fit Adventure, and what they're trying to do is get people to be more active because they know that Americans aren't active enough. And the reason I think that's so interesting is that they also don't forget the core gamers, the video game players that Microsoft and Sony try so hard to cater to. Nintendo is really good at catering to both the hardcore, more serious video game players and the more relaxed, they just kind of want to have fun and play these colorful games with their families, video game players. And I think that's a really smart way to go about it. And even though they haven't always had successes, because the Wii U, which was what came out before what we have now, which is the Nintendo Switch, the Wii U is considered a failure. It was not a good console. It was the low point for Nintendo. It was really bad, but they decided if it ain't working, we're gonna fix it. So what they did was they decided to turn everything around and make something completely new. And now we have their second most successful console ever behind the Wii, which is the Switch. And like pretty much everyone knows what the Wii is. That's what most people nowadays know Nintendo for, is the Wii. But now everybody is also talking about the Switch because the Switch is a huge deal. So if we're to look at what Nintendo has been doing right and what they have been doing wrong, they've definitely been doing more right. And even though they're not always getting huge, massive successes like most companies would want, like companies like Disney, which I mentioned before, they only want huge successes. If something doesn't make a lot of money, they don't work on it anymore. But Nintendo, they have something that other companies don't. They have fun. Nintendo likes to have fun. They do things that they think are interesting. Plus, they try to be a lot more personal with their audience. They have the main, whether it be the Japanese or the American side, they have the main CEOs, higher ups, they actually like talk to their audience. They try to tell them about what's coming out. They try to personally be like, we are people too. We are just like you. And I feel like a lot of companies don't do that, which makes it feel like Nintendo, even though you could see it as just a marketing strategy, they feel a little more personal with their consumers and with their audience that they're going for than other companies do. And I think that's really admirable. I really enjoy that aspect of Nintendo. I personally think that Nintendo is just really good at being Nintendo. And there's no other way to explain it. There's nobody else like Nintendo because nobody else tries to do what Nintendo does. Nintendo is all about just being themselves and trying to make the consumers feel like they're allowed to be themselves. Nintendo is a corporate business. Their main goal is to make money. But it also, something about them feels like they also just want to have fun. And I know that sounds a little cheesy, but I personally think it's true. I think that Nintendo really does want to just have fun sometimes and not only worry about the money like other companies seem to do, which is, I think, really inspiring and really admirable. I think that Nintendo being able to just decide, hey, we just want to have fun. I think that is a really interesting way to look at how to do or run a business. And they've been doing that ever since they started back in the 1800s making Japanese playing cards. And I think that is why Nintendo is my favorite business, my favorite organization, whatever you want to call it. I love Nintendo. Pretty much that's what I'm saying. And I understand why not everybody does, but I personally think that they're pretty admirable either way.